I'm your host, Sheldon Alexander, and we got something a little bit different today. We got a bonus pod where we're breaking down the Stanley Cup playoffs, and we brought out the big guns to help us out as we deep dive through each and every playoff series to give you the goodness to try to help you make some money. Maybe we'll start with my favorite team in the Toronto Maple Leafs, who are back in the playoffs trying to get out of the first round again. How often have we heard that? But game one, you got Tampa Bay at plus 105. The Leafs at minus 125. Over-under number is at 6.5. Matt, I'm going to start with you here on this Lightning Leaf series. How are you looking at this series from a betting standpoint?
Yeah, well, so I moved to Toronto in 2005. So I've been here 17 years, and I'm still waiting on the Leafs to win a playoff series, make the second round. And I've been delighted by it. It's been a really great time for the 17 years. Unfortunately, from that side of things, Shell, I think your squad is going to do it this time around, man. I've had this series targeted not just for this year, not just for this last week, for a couple of years now. You can think back to the bubble. Remember when the Blue Jackets knocked off the Leafs? I thought that was a bad matchup for the Leafs, right? They don't want that hard team. Same thing with the Bruins every time that they play that team. The Lightning, obviously, they are hard because this is a team that's won 2 Stanley Cups in a row. But the bigger issue here is it's not that there's value on the Leafs, it's that it's not an absolute gouge job from a pricing standpoint on the Leafs this year. This is one where you can actually bet on the Leafs and not be embarrassed about doing so because you're getting the absolute worst price you could possibly imagine. And all it took was a matchup against the 2-time defending Stanley Cup champions. So that's what we got, right? We were like, okay, how do we get value on the Maple Leafs? How about a team that hasn't lost a playoff series since before a pandemic, right? So I just look at this and I go, listen, my numbers make this, about 50-50 with a slight advantage to the Leafs, mainly because their home ice advantage has been a lot better this year than in years past. And so I think it's a fair price. It's certainly a more fair price on Toronto at minus 120, whether you're talking game one or the series, than it is at the, for the Lightning at plus 100. And, there's a reason it's really, really hard to win. It's really, really hard to win 2 straight Stanley Cups. A little bit easier on the body when it's in the bubble and you don't have all the travel elements that the Lightning had 2 years ago. It's really, really hard to win it 3 times in a row. We just don't see that now. Again, they're not going to hand out the Stanley Cup for the Lightning beating the Leafs, though people of my ilk would certainly want to give them an award. I think Michael is probably in that camp of fashioning his own award for anybody who wins, who knocks the Leafs off, sort of like a poker bounty type of a situation. But I think this is actually one where we're going to bet on the Leafs. Now, I'm not going to do it beyond this because there are no 2-time defending Stanley Cup champions down the road here to take some of the value. I just think in this case, this is Leafs. I'm going to have them to win the series. I'm also going to play them Leafs in 7 games here. It's available at plus 500. This isn't going to be easy, right? And having the home ice advantage and having that game 7 at home means we're probably going to see a game 7 price of around minus 120. I think there's a very good chance we reach that game 7. And when you're sitting there with a plus 500, even a plus 400 Leafs in 7 ticket, you can make some moves around that depending on how you feel, A, about the team, and B, about whether or not you're selling your soul betting on the Leafs to advance in a Stanley Cup playoff series.
Mike, what do you think, man?
Yeah, a little bit of disagreement here. I think Tampa Bay at plus money, considering the goaltending edge, and this isn't to say that Jack Campbell's I think a lot of people take what I'm about to say because you hear it a lot and saying, oh, he's saying Jack Campbell's going to struggle. I don't think that's the case. I think Jack Campbell will probably be fine in the series, but when you're going up against Andrei Vasilevsky, the best goalie in the world that we've seen for the past 3 years, this season notwithstanding, he was maybe the 3rd best goalie in the world. So a huge drop off from him. You're just the gap is wide enough. And I think when you think about the Leafs, and people bring up this all the time when they play in these playoff series, is where did Marner and Matthews go? Where did the offense go? They're too top heavy, and it's not really their fault, right? It's the fact that when you get to the playoffs, you play a good team every night. So it's harder to score. It's harder to score against Victor Hedman and Ryan McDonough and Eric Chernak than it is to score against, all due respect to the Ottawa Senators, a team that is near and dear to my heart. But if you're playing the Senators one night, the Lightning the next, 2 nights later, and then you play, the Predators, it's a much different environment than going up against 30 minutes of McDonough, 30 minutes of Hedman, 28 minutes of Chernak. And then if you get by them and actually create a scoring chance, you got to beat Vasilevsky. So right away, I think those guys, that defense and the depth they have, not only on defense, but a forward and the responsible two-way forwards that they have, Anthony Cirelli is a terrific shutdown center. It just makes the job harder for Matthews, Marner, and the Leafs. And if those guys don't perform, then we're talking about the series completely shifts. The edge goes right to Tampa Bay.
Sure.
So I think getting plus money on the Lightning is worth a shot here. And I think that's true series price, game 1 line. And I'll probably be playing the Lightning here. And I think if you had flipped it, right, if the Lightning were if you were getting the Leafs at plus money, so maybe for games 3 and 4, I'll be on Toronto, unfortunately. But I think it's these games are just coin flips in this series. There's very, very little that separates these two teams, and the biggest thing I think the biggest edge you'll find is the one in goal.
All right.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all. I mean, that's certainly a point against the Leafs. And honestly, it's why this series is the coin flip that it is. Leafs have the home ice advantage. They have played much better at home. Also, they have played much better 5-on-5 this year. And so when you're talking about, it's funny, we talk about this with football and basketball, where you look at a matchup and we tend to go, oh man, this cornerback is going to shut down this wide receiver. This defensive player is going to shut down, the best offensive player in the league or affect him in some way. And we automatically sort of look for the defensive player to have that impact. We almost never give credit to the offensive player, where we're just like, you know what? Jamar Chase is just really good, and he's going to catch a long pass against Jalen Ramsey in the Super Bowl. Like, that's just a thing because he's really good. If somebody is going to be able to get through the Tampa Bay defense, the Tampa Bay goaltending, why wouldn't it be the guy with 60 goals, right? And who has some depth on that team? Again, like I mentioned, I live in Toronto. They happen to sort of forget the Nylander injury from, last year. That's a massive blow to the depth. And I took advantage of that by betting the heck out of the Montreal Canadiens last year. But I have to at least remember that that's a thing that happened, right? And so the depth with Toronto, having those guys all healthy, ready to go, and having this next level, again, whether it's Matthews or whether it's the even strength play that's improved so much from even just last year. It's not the same team, right? This team should be, if it's not now, I shouldn't say if it's not now, when, because it could easily be next year. It could be the year after that. And maybe it's not because they're going to have to deal with the Floridas, the Bostons, and the Tampas, basically, unless there's radical realignment. Maybe it isn't. Again, I just look at it and go, I think we're going to go 7 games here. I think the Leafs, at home in that 7th game with this matchup, I think they have a decent chance here from a valuation standpoint. Again, something that I think is literally 52-48. And so once we get into that semantics, right, it's like, I think it's 52-48. And like Michael's like, well, I think it's 51-49. It's like, that's a really, really tiny edge of a disagreement here. So I'm completely fine with seeing how this plays out and probably going to game 7 and watching the world burn, so to speak, one way or another.